The old Victorian mansion on Maple Street stood like a sentinel, its intricate gables and stained glass windows catching the late afternoon sun in a kaleidoscope of colors. For Emily Harper, 29, this wasn't just a house, it was a living memory, a testament to the love of her grandmother, Margaret, Maggie, Thompson, who had raised her within its century-old walls. The scent of polished oak and the creak of the wide staircase were as familiar to Emily as her own heartbeat. Maggie had taught her to see beauty in the smallest details, the hand-carved moldings, the whisper of history in every room, which had fueled Emily's passion for interior design. But today, as she stood in the foyer, her heart raced with a different kind of fire. Betrayal was brewing. And it wore the faces of her own family. Emily's story begins with a jolt. A moment that shattered the illusion of family unity. Just hours ago, she'd returned from a client meeting in downtown Seattle, her mind buzzing with ideas for a new boutique hotel project. The sight of a stranger in her living room, a woman in a crisp blazer, snapping photos and measuring walls, stopped her cold. "I'm with Pinnacle Realty," the woman said, startled. "Your family requested a market appraisal for the property." Emily's polite smile hid the storm brewing inside. Family? No one had mentioned selling the house. She ushered the realtor out. But the words echoed like a warning shot. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. 5 years ago, when Maggie passed away at 89, her will had stunned everyone. The Grand Victorian, perched on a coveted corner lot in one of Seattle's most upscale neighborhoods, was left solely to Emily, along with a modest trust to maintain it. Maggie's letter, read aloud by the family lawyer, was clear. Emily understands this house's heart. She'll honor its past while giving it a future. The decision was a lightning bolt, splitting the family into resentment and greed. Emily's father, Charles, Chuck, Larson, 60, a man whose charm masked a lifelong string of failed ventures, had counted on selling the house to settle his mounting debts from risky stock trades. Her mother, Vivian Larson, 58, with her perfectly curated socialite image, hid her fury behind a practiced smile. She planned to liquidate the property to fund her lavish lifestyle and cover credit card bills that Emily later discovered topped 6 figures. Emily's older brother, Nathan, 32, and his fiancée, Claire, saw the house as their ticket out of financial ruin after their tech startup crashed, leaving them drowning in loans. They'd been crashing in the guest cottage for over a year, far longer than the few weeks they'd promised. Emily's younger sister, Sophie, 26, a barista with dreams of opening an art gallery, had hoped her share of the estate would erase her student loans from an expensive liberal arts degree. Despite their bitterness, Emily had tried to keep the family together. She let Nathan and Claire stay in the cottage, helped Sophie with loan payments when tips were low, and even lent Chuck money for what he called surefire investments that never paid off. Her interior design business was thriving, with contracts for high-end homes and commercial spaces across the Pacific Northwest. Yet, the more Emily succeeded, the more her family's financial troubles seemed to deepen, their resentment simmering just below the surface. The realtor's visit was the first crack in the facade. When Emily confronted her family, Chuck dismissed it as just exploring options. Vivian's tight smile didn't reach her eyes. Nathan rolled his eyes, calling her overdramatic. Sophie changed the subject. Emily might have let it go, chalking it up to paranoia, if not for a discovery a week later. Rifling through Nathan's laptop bag, left open in the kitchen, she found a stack of real estate listings, condos and lofts they could afford after selling her house. The photos of the Victorian's interior, clearly taken without her consent, hit like a punch to the gut. Her family wasn't just talking about selling her home, they were planning it behind her back. Emily chose silence over confrontation, her instincts screaming to watch and wait. She noticed hushed conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, phone calls taken in the backyard with lowered voices. Then came the bombshell. A neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a retired paralegal with a knack for noticing everything, tipped her off about a meeting. "I saw your family at the country club with some suit," Evelyn said over coffee, her eyes sharp. They were talking about property lines and zoning for condos. Your dad said you didn't need to know until it was done. Emily's blood ran cold. Her family wasn't just scheming. They were ready to erase her from the equation. Determined to protect Maggie's legacy, Emily called Daniel Rivera, a lawyer who'd drafted contracts for her business and had worked with Maggie on her will years ago. They've got no legal ground to stand on, Daniel assured her, leaning back in his office chair. Maggie's will is airtight, but money makes people desperate. Especially family. They might try something dirty. His advice was clear. Document everything. Record conversations if Washington law allowed. Keep proof of every repair, every tax payment, every improvement she'd made to the house. And most crucially, don't tip her hand too soon. Let them think they're winning, Daniel said with a wry smile. That's when they'll slip up. Over the next 3 months, Emily turned her home into a fortress of evidence. She installed discreet security cameras in common areas, checked with Daniel to ensure legality, and saved every text, email, and voicemail from her family. She logged every visitor, every odd encounter, building a timeline that grew darker by the day. The most gut-wrenching find came when she overheard Nathan on a call, plotting to challenge Maggie's will by claiming she was senile in her final year. We just need a doctor to say an 89-year-old couldn't possibly be sharp, he said, his voice cold. Emily took advantage of her confusion. Everyone saw it. The lie stung deeper than Emily expected, tarnishing Maggie's memory. Her grandmother had been vibrant until the end, devouring historical novels and beating Emily at Scrabble with a wicked grin. Her occasional forgetfulness was just age, not dementia. Emily hired a private investigator, who uncovered a web of deceit. Chuck's debts weren't just from bad investments. He owed money to shady loan sharks. Vivian had opened 2 credit cards in Emily's name, racking up thousands in charges. Nathan and Claire had pitched the house as collateral to investors for a new venture, lying about their ownership. Worst of all, Sophie had been selling Maggie's heirlooms, silver candlesticks, a pearl necklace, rare first edition books from the library, at local pawnshops to cover her bills. Each discovery was a fresh wound. But Emily pressed on, driven by a fierce need to protect what Maggie had entrusted to her. One rainy evening, while searching the attic for old maintenance records, Emily found a hidden treasure, Maggie's journal, tucked behind a loose panel in the study's fireplace. The leather-bound pages chronicled decades of family secrets. Maggie had known about Chuck's reckless spending, Vivian's obsession with status, and their attempts to tap into her savings. Chuck sees the house as a cash machine, Maggie wrote in her neat script. Vivian would sell it tomorrow for a new wardrobe. Only Emily sees it as a home, a piece of our history. The journal explained Maggie's choice to leave everything to Emily, along with a warning: they'll fight her for it. They always do when money's involved. Daniel uncovered another bombshell. Chuck had tried to file a forged codicil to Maggie's will, dated days after she'd been hospitalized in her final week. The signature was a clumsy imitation, and a clerk at the county office had flagged it, halting its processing. They're getting sloppy, Daniel said, his voice grim. They're out of time and money. Expect them to make their move soon. Emily and Daniel built a counterattack. Proof of every property tax she'd paid. Receipts for roof repairs and window restorations. Filings with the Historical Society her family claimed were missing. They drafted restraining orders against each family member, ready to serve when the time came, and compiled evidence of their fraud, recordings, financial records, pawnshop receipts. You're not just defending the house, Daniel told her. You're defending Maggie's trust in you. As Emily's 30th birthday approached, the tension in the house was palpable. She prepared for the family dinner she'd planned, using Maggie's recipes for rosemary roast chicken and lemon tart, setting the table with her grandmother's heirloom china. The garden's roses, which Emily still tended, filled the room with their scent. But beneath the festive preparations, she braced for what was coming. Her family thought they held all the cards, but Emily was ready to turn the tables. The Victorian stood silent, its ancient oaks whispering in the evening breeze. Emily touched the locket she wore, a gift from Maggie containing her photo, and steeled herself. The house had seen generations come and go, weathering storms and secrets. Now, It was Emily's turn to fight for it, and for herself. The dining room of the Grand Victorian on Maple Street glowed with warmth. The table set with Margaret, Maggie, Thompson's heirloom china. Catching the flicker of candlelight. Emily Harper, now 30, had spent the morning preparing for her birthday dinner, channeling her grandmother's love into every detail: rosemary roast chicken, a garden-fresh salad, and a towering lemon tart dusted with powdered sugar. Roses from Maggie's beloved garden filled the air with their sweet scent. And family photos on the mantel, smiling faces from happier times, promised a night of celebration. But Emily's heart pounded with a different anticipation. Tonight wasn't just a birthday. It was the night she'd face her family's betrayal head-on. The doorbell chimed at 5 p.m., sharp and formal, announcing the arrival of Charles, Chuck, Larson, 60, and Vivian Larson, 58. Chuck's slick smile couldn't hide the glint of calculation in his eyes. His suit more suited to a boardroom than a family gathering. Vivian, draped in a silk dress, air-kissed Emily's cheek, careful not to smudge her flawless makeup. "The house looks divine, darling," she said, her gaze sweeping the foyer like an appraiser. Chuck clapped Emily's shoulder. "Too hard. Another year wiser. Kiddo, we've got something special for you tonight." His tone carried an edge that made Emily's stomach twist. Next came Nathan, 32, and his fiancée, Claire, bursting in with a bottle of champagne and forced cheer. "The birthday queen," Nathan boomed, his voice too loud, his grin too wide. Claire hugged Emily tightly, whispering, "You deserve the best today," her emphasis chilling in hindsight. Sophie, 26, arrived last, clutching a small gift box, her eyes red-rimmed and avoiding contact. "Happy birthday, Em," she mumbled, beelining for the wine. The family's enthusiasm during dinner felt rehearsed. Their laughter too sharp, their compliments on the food overly effusive. They kept Emily's glass full, steering conversation to safe topics: Nathan's new gig as a personal trainer, Vivian's gossip about neighbors, Chuck's golf scores. No one asked about Emily's design business, her recent award for a waterfront mansion renovation, or her life. After dinner, they moved to the living room for cake and gifts. Sophie went first, offering a delicate silver bracelet that reminded Emily of Maggie's style. "I thought you'd like it," Sophie said softly, her voice heavy with guilt. Nathan and Claire presented a high-end candle set, an extravagant choice for a couple supposedly broke. Vivian's gift was a cashmere shawl, more her taste than Emily's. Then Chuck stood, holding a thin envelope with a flourish. "This one's from all of us," he announced, the room falling silent. A real game-changer. Emily's fingers trembled as she opened it, expecting a concert ticket or a spa voucher. Instead, she found a formal eviction notice, demanding she vacate her own home within 30 days. The words blurred on the page, legal jargon claiming a hidden clause in Maggie's will that gave the family collective ownership due to financial hardship. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "What is this?" Chuck cleared his throat, leaning forward. "We've been patient, Emily, but the family needs this house now. It's worth over $2.5 million. Split 5 ways. It fixes everyone's problems." Vivian's smile was saccharine. "Maggie would have wanted to help us all. Not just you. We found a codicil she meant to file, making it clear the house was for everyone." Nathan jumped in, his eyes gleaming. "A developer's ready to buy the second you're out. They'll build luxury condos. We all get an equal share." Claire nodded. "You've had the house to yourself for 5 years. That's more than fair." Only Sophie stared at her hands, silent. Emily's shock gave way to a cold clarity. "Equal except for me, you mean?" she said, her voice steadying. "There's no legal basis for this. Maggie's will was crystal clear." Chuck smirked. "Actually, there is. Our lawyer found you failed to file maintenance records with the Historical Society for 3 years. That voids the inheritance terms." The lie hit hard. Emily had filed those records religiously, but through her business email, not the family account they still accessed. Vivian's tone turned sharp. "We need an answer. Emily, will you leave quietly, or do we make this messy?" The room held its breath, waiting for her surrender. Instead, Emily folded the notice with deliberate care, placing it back in the envelope. I need a moment, she said, standing. Vivian hissed. Don't make a scene. This is final. Emily walked to her study. Her steps measured, ignoring their confused murmurs. Alone, she sent a text to Daniel Rivera, her lawyer. They did it. Plan B. 3 months ago, the realtor's visit had been Emily's first warning. But Mrs. Evelyn Carter's tip about the country club meeting had set everything in motion. Emily had spent those months building a case with Daniel, gathering evidence of her family's schemes, recordings of Nathan plotting to discredit Maggie's mental state, bank statements showing Vivian's fraudulent credit cards, pawnshop receipts for Sophie's thefts, and investor documents proving Nathan and Claire's lies about owning the house. The crown jewel was Maggie's journal, hidden behind a fireplace panel, detailing decades of family greed and why she'd chosen Emily. Daniel had also uncovered Chuck's attempt to file a forged codicil, stopped by a vigilant clerk. They'd prepared legal notices and restraining orders, waiting for the family to make their move. Back in the living room, Emily returned with a leather portfolio, her expression calm but unyielding. I've thought about your proposal, she said, sitting down, and I understand the situation. Chuck relaxed, mistaking her composure for defeat. Good. The developer needs an answer by next week. So, Emily cut him off. I didn't say I'd accept your terms. I said I understand. There's a difference. She opened the portfolio, pulling out 5 sealed envelopes, each labeled with a name. Since we're exchanging legal documents, I came prepared. She handed them out, watching confusion turn to shock as they read. Chuck exploded first, leaping to his feet. What the hell is this? He waved a notice evicting him from the guest cottage within 48 hours. That's a legally binding order, Emily said coolly. Unlike yours, Vivian sputtered, staring at her own document. You can't possibly have proof of credit card fraud? Emily finished. 6 accounts in my name. Mom, the police are very interested. Nathan crumpled his paper. These allegations are bullshit. Emily's gaze didn't waver. The investors you scammed with fake collateral documents disagree. They're cooperating with the investigation. Claire's hands shook. Emily, this is a mistake. We're family. Family doesn't do what you've done. Emily snapped, her voice cracking. She turned to Sophie. The pawnshops keep meticulous records. Maggie's silver candlesticks and first edition Austen novels have been recovered. Chuck's face purpled. You've been spying on us? For 3 months. Emily confirmed, since I found a realtor measuring my home for a listing I never approved. She played a recording from her phone, Nathan's voice scheming to challenge Maggie's will. Chuck planning the forged codicil. I have dozens more, she said, stopping the playback. Every call, every meeting with that shady lawyer who's already under investigation. Even your developer backed out when they learned about the legal mess. The doorbell rang. Right on cue. That's Daniel, my attorney, Emily said, rising. Daniel entered, briefcase in hand, his presence commanding. I assume you've received your notices, he said, scanning the room. Chuck barked. This is harassment. We'll fight it. Daniel's voice was ice. I wouldn't advise that, Mr. Larson. The evidence is overwhelming. These notices are a courtesy. Emily's agreed not to press criminal charges if you comply immediately. Vivian's composure shattered. Criminal charges? For what? Fraud, conspiracy, theft, identity theft, filing false documents. Daniel listed. Shall I go on? Chaos erupted. Chuck blamed Vivian for pushing the plan. Nathan accused Claire of botching the investor pitch. Claire sobbed, claiming she was just following orders. Sophie sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Enough, Emily shouted, silencing them. You came here to steal my home on my birthday. Did you think I wouldn't fight back? Chuck's voice shrank. We needed the money. The house is worth so much. And you're just one person. Emily's laugh was bitter. Was it fair when I lent you money you gambled away? When I let Nathan and Claire live rent-free for a year? When I paid Sophie's loans? She pulled out a final document. This is every dollar I've given you, $180 over 5 years. Money you took without a thought of repayment. Vivian clutched at sentiment. We're blood, Emily. Family helps family. You stopped seeing me as family. Emily shot back. You saw me as an obstacle to cash. You were ready to trash Maggie's memory, claiming she was senile, just to get this house. She picked up a photo from the mantel. A Christmas snapshot of their smiling faces. I wanted this to be real. But families don't plot to steal from each other. Nathan broke the silence. What do you want? You out of my house. Emily said simply. All of you. Tonight. The locks change tomorrow. Take your personal belongings, nothing else. Claire's voice rose. Where do we go? Not my problem. Emily replied. You had plans for after you evicted me. Use them. Their reactions shifted from rage to desperation. Chuck offered to renegotiate the house's proceeds. Vivian tried tears, dredging up childhood memories. Nathan and Claire promised amends. Only Sophie's apology felt real. I'm so sorry, Em, she whispered. I thought you wouldn't be hurt. Emily's voice softened but stayed firm. You sold Maggie's treasures, Sophie, the things she wanted you to cherish. Daniel intervened. I suggest you start packing. Security arrives soon to supervise. As they scattered to gather their things, Emily felt the weight of the night settle over her. Victory was hers, but it tasted like ash. She'd lost her family in a single evening. The bonds she'd fought to preserve unraveling into nothing. The next hours unfolded like a fever dream. Security guards stationed themselves throughout the house, watching as Chuck and Vivian packed suitcases. Nathan and Claire hauled boxes to their SUV, and Sophie quietly filled a duffel bag. Chuck alternated between threats of lawsuits and desperate pleas for a deal. Vivian's manipulation turned to venom. You think you're above us now? With your fancy clients, she hissed, shoving clothes into a bag. You'd be nothing without us. Nathan and Claire worked in silence, their accusatory glances darting toward Emily. Sophie lingered on the porch, head in her hands, her remorse palpable but too late. By midnight, they were gone. Daniel and security did a final sweep, ensuring no heirlooms were taken. The locks were changed, codes reset, and Emily was alone in the vast house. The silence was deafening. She wandered from room to room, touching Maggie's antique desk, straightening a crooked frame, seeking solace in the familiar. In the kitchen, the half-eaten birthday cake mocked the day's ruin. In Maggie's study, Emily sank into her grandmother's chair, tears finally breaking free, not just for tonight, but for the years of deception she'd been too hopeful to see. Dawn found her in the window seat, watching sunlight spill over Maggie's rose garden. The world moved on, kids boarded school buses, neighbors walked dogs, but Emily's life had fractured. Mrs. Evelyn Carter appeared at the fence, concern etched on her face. I saw the chaos last night. Dear, you okay? Emily's voice broke. They tried to take the house. My own family. Evelyn's hand covered hers. Those leeches never deserved you. Family's not always blood, it's the ones who show up when it counts. That first week, Emily threw herself into work. Her design projects a lifeline. But the fallout spread. A client cancelled. Spooked by rumors Chuck and Vivian spread about Emily, heartlessly, evicting her family. Evelyn countered the gossip at her book club, bringing casseroles and fierce loyalty. Daniel reported Chuck and Vivian's failed attempts to find a lawyer willing to take their case. Nathan and Claire had fled to Portland, dodging creditors. Sophie had vanished, her silence a fresh wound. One night, sorting through Maggie's photo albums in the attic, Emily was interrupted by the doorbell. Through the peephole, she saw Sophie, shivering, a backpack at her feet. I've been sleeping in my car, Sophie admitted, her voice raw, against every instinct. Emily let her in, over coffee. Sophie revealed she'd refused to join their parents' continued scheming, earning her own eviction from their rented apartment. They think you'll cave if they keep pushing, Sophie said. I told them they're delusional. Emily set strict terms. Sophie could stay in the attic room, pay rent, attend therapy, and repay the value of Maggie's stolen heirlooms. Sophie agreed, her relief palpable, as Emily showed her upstairs. Maggie's voice seemed to echo. Compassion isn't weakness, Emily, it's strength. Over the next 6 months, Emily transformed the house. The dining room became a sunlit studio for her clients. The guest cottage was razed, replaced by a meditation garden. Each change healed a wound, reclaiming the space as hers. She founded the Maggie Thompson Foundation, using her profits to fund scholarships for young designers, turning Maggie's legacy into a living force. The foundation's launch, coupled with a housewarming party, drew friends, colleagues, and chosen family, Evelyn, Daniel, even Sophie, who'd earned back trust through therapy and restitution. At the party, Evelyn gave Emily a vintage key on a chain, once Maggie's, symbolizing discernment. She called it the key to knowing when to open doors and when to lock them. Evelyn said, "The gift felt like Maggie's blessing." Later, Sophie handed Emily a letter from Vivian, dripping with manipulation. Emily scanned it, then handed it back. "I don't need to reply." Sophie nodded, respecting her boundary, a small but profound victory. Alone in the garden that night, Emily breathed in the scent of roses under a starlit sky. The house stood strong, no longer a battleground but a home she'd claimed through pain and resilience. The scars of betrayal remained, but they'd forged wisdom. Trust your gut, set boundaries unapologetically, and cherish those who lift you up. Family, she'd learned, was a choice, not an obligation. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family to protect your peace? What gave you the strength to stand tall? Share below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories of courage and self-discovery. You're not alone in this fight.